Yeah.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Cybersite Chats. Today, we're going to talk about Iran's cyber surge. My name is Sherri Davidoff. I'm the founder of LMG Security.
And I'm Matt Durrin, the Director of Training and Research for LMG Security.
And let's jump in. I mean, we've seen in the past that when there are these surges of international conflict in general, we also see increased risk of cyber attacks. And often, even if you're not a defense contractor or a government agency, you may get hit by the shrapnel. So it really does increase risk for all of us.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Yeah, so why don't we jump right in and talk about what we're seeing specifically from Iran in particular.
Sure.
Because there was a warning that came out from CISA and the FBI on June 30th about this.
Yeah. I mean, it's a significant threat at this point. And a lot of it has to do with, I mean, as you mentioned before, when we see these like cyber weapons of war being deployed, oftentimes they escape the boundaries of whatever conflict they're like intended to be used for.
Well, I was particularly concerned to see wiper malware coming out. And that's something we've seen multiple times over the years, not just from Iran, but also particularly damaging when it came out in the Ukraine-Russia conflict.
Right.
I mean, I still get flashbacks to NotPetya, which was wiper malware distributed against the Ukraine by reportedly Russian organizations.
Right.
And it was distributed through accounting software, so they actually managed to plant a backdoor into the most popular accounting software used by about 80% of Ukrainian organizations. And you might think, why do we care? Well, we care when that escapes, when it hits, what was it, Merck and
FedEx and others, like $10 billion worth of damage.
Yeah, at the time it was
astronomical figure like that.
There were cyber insurance claims that went on for years. In fact, I think one of them just got resolved last year.
Yeah, no, it was a big deal. And I mean, the big problem there was that, I mean, it was masquerading as ransomware, but that was purely destructive malware. Anything it hit, it just wiped out at that point. So, I mean, we lost entire networks because of it. And it was just because it's similar to what we're seeing with the malware that would potentially get out of the Iranian conflict. I mean, it's kind of indiscriminate as to who it goes after. If it infects a system, it works. It's not identifying who it is before anything happens.
Well, and I know in June, Unit 42 published a report saying that they were seeing custom malware linked to the Dustman lineage and Zero Claire lineage that was coming out of Iranian organizations. So they were looking to destroy disks that were both Windows and Linux based. And even though they were, there was evidence that they were trying to target SCADA and ICS endpoints, again, it's not limited to that.
Right. And that's where the problem comes in.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
We also saw, as part of CISA's alert, they said, I have a little quote here, that even though defense industrial-based companies are particularly those possessing holdings or relationships with Israeli research and defense firms are at increased risk. But then the next sentence, again, is what concerns everybody. Hacktivists and Iranian government-affiliated actors routinely target poorly secured U.S. networks and internet-connected devices for disruptive cyber attacks. So again, they're not just targeting organizations that are directly involved in the conflict. This really, a lot of times, it's just targets of opportunity.
Yeah, no, they're going after the periphery in this case. Like, if there is I guess, an interested country that is, involved in one side of the war or the other, I mean, they become a target at that point, regardless of their direct involvement or not.
Well, and you were commenting yesterday, Matt, that this was a really big patch Tuesday in terms of Microsoft vulnerabilities. Oh, and there might have been another big Microsoft vulnerability that just came out. Do you want to maybe share some of what
we should talk about a few of those. So, I mean, to be fair, there was recently a big pwn-to-own competition where a lot of these vulnerabilities were discovered. And Microsoft's Patch Tuesday for July had over 137 different vulnerabilities that it addressed. And like there were 14 criticals, there was a known 0-day. And a lot of these are remote code execution, privilege escalation. They're for the Windows operating system, for Microsoft's Office products. Like, it was across the board.
And SharePoint has the remote code execution.
And SharePoint we just saw had a really critical 0-day vulnerability that was revealed that is actually like actively being exploited in the wild. So if you guys have an on-premise SharePoint server, patch that thing immediately.
And assume that it's been compromised
if
it's internet facing. I know just through the grapevine, I've heard of multiple incidents that are currently under investigation because of the SharePoint vulnerability.
Yeah, as of this point, I mean, there was a lead-in that there is some large organization who may have been compromised that we will likely hear about. But
we're going to hear soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, it's going to be pretty bad. I mean, it's not on the level of something like the proxy shell exchange vulnerability or something like that, but when you think SharePoint and file servers in general, that's where your crown jewels tend to sit inside of a network. So if somebody gets access to it,
right.
one, they can steal your data, and two, they can pivot into everything else that you have running as a Windows product.
Okay, but how does this relate to Iran?
How does it relate to Iran?
How does this relate to Iran?
Right. So when we see these kind of big cyber surges is what people tend to call them, where we see a massive increase in the number of cyber attacks. I mean, those zero-day vulnerabilities or old zero-day vulnerabilities are frequently targeted. I mean, people are spamming the internet trying to find ways that they can exploit these for their own benefit at this point. I mean, they're targeting your VPNs, they're targeting your firewalls, they're targeting anything they can get to. And the collateral damage here is kind of a non-point for a lot of these attackers. They're just really trying to go for massive footprint. So
yeah, if they can get a foothold in, that's great.
Yep.
Tell me about Charming Kitten.
Oh,
and
Charming
I want to
Kitten.
hear about Charming Kitten and the story of generative AI spear phishing attacks.
I mean, way to lead me in on that one. Well, we've talked about this before. So just in general, we see a massive increase in the use of generative AI when we talk about phishing, just on a worldwide basis. But with groups like Charming Kitten, I mean, they're utilizing their access to ChatGPT-like tools to perform a couple of things. First and foremost, they can do deep research on the people they're actually targeting using that AI system.
Like that?
Yeah, instantly. And when they have that information, they can craft these, what do they call it, context accurate, very, very targeted, very believable style phishing emails that are intended to gain access into networks at this point. And this is not, again, this is not something that's necessarily a new tactic, but it is increasing in its usage. And the fact that it's being used specifically in this conflict as a war weapon at this point is a little bit frightening.
Yeah, Unit 42 had a post. I saw it on LinkedIn. I'm sure it's on other social. And they actually posted a malicious PDF that was created using generative AI. It was targeted. It was pretending to be the U.S. nonprofit RAND.
Right.
And then circulated from there. And I believe it was designed to exploit zero-day vulnerabilities once you opened the malicious PDF.
Yeah, it came along with malware as a side loader inside the PDF, which is, again, not necessarily a new tactic, but it's being very highly targeted right now at very specific groups. Yeah.
What was that IBM study you were telling me about?
Oh, yeah. So there was a study that came out from IBM. Honestly, it's a couple years old, so I would assume this is probably, way better at this point. But the IBM did a research project where they talked about the effectiveness of AI-generated phishing campaigns versus if we were to create one or something like that. And they figured out that in about 5 minutes with 5 prompts, they were able to get their AI to create a phishing campaign that was as effective as one that took a team of cybersecurity professionals 16 hours to create. And again, this is 2023 when this report came out, so
it's probably 12 seconds.
Oh yeah, it's instantaneous at this point.
Well, what we're seeing right now, Iran is conducting spear phishing attacks that are clearly fueled using generative AI, and the goal is to get a malicious PDF or a malicious document on the target system, which will then exploit zero-day vulnerabilities. And they're trying to exfiltrate data for multiple purposes. One, they want to be able to use that for espionage purposes, but also they just want to expand their access. So they're grabbing things like passwords. And again, this increases the risk for all of us. And where I get especially concerned is when I hear about nation-state actors also just trying to get money. Yeah. Because that means that they really don't care who they target.
Yeah, there are, I think we were reading about this a little bit earlier today, there are a couple of Iranian-based ransomware groups that are now offering mass payouts if you're going after someone like Israel. You get a bonus basically.
That's great. Yes, that's exactly right. Paytokey.I2P. So they're linked to the Iran state-backed Fox Kitten. Why are there so many kittens?
I love these names.
Their names are kittens. But yeah, they're a ransomware group, and they just put out a statement saying that they're offering increased payouts if you hack an Israeli organization. But of course, Israeli-based organizations are not the only organizations that they are targeting.
Oh, sure, no, they're going after everyone.
Nation-state actors are just trying to make money like the rest of us. Yeah. And so they're not afraid to use these tactics to target you and me. I think the other thing you mentioned to me, Matt, that I know you've been researching are the disinformation and deepfake campaigns. Yeah. So Iranian actors have been spotted using deepfakes, is that right? Yeah,
deepfakes, AI-generated video. I mean, so right when that conflict erupted, and I was following along on accounts on X and Facebook and Instagram and places like that were posting about it. There was this mass influx of AI, very clearly at first, but then, it got a little harder to tell, but AI-generated videos showing pieces of the conflict. So if Iran was firing missiles into Jerusalem or somewhere like that, or Tel Aviv, there were videos that were coming out from supposedly, official Iranian news sources that showed massive explosions going off and buildings burning and things like that. And a lot of them were completely fake. But the point behind it was they were trying to create confusion about what was actually happening in the region. And a lot of these were geared towards, the citizens of Israel at that point. They wanted those people to see what they, wanted them to think was happening and to, just kind of scare them a little bit.
Yeah, but again, it's not just Israeli media that's being targeted.
Oh, no, it's all media.
Yeah, and there's been at least one case where they were putting fake information, or I think they were targeting a U.S.-based internet TV company as well.
Right.
So watch out and really think critically about the information you receive and where it's coming from.
Yeah, no, I mean, good advice in general about the internet, but yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, why don't we talk through some of our takeaways and how we can protect ourselves? And then if you guys have questions, thank you to those of you that sent in questions ahead of time. We really appreciate it. And we'll link some of these reports, these news reports, in our show notes as well. Please check out our regular weekly podcast and subscribe. We do this live once a month and then every week. We've been working to produce a timely podcast at the same time. So feel free to subscribe to that too. But in the meantime, I think the number one thing I think everybody should do is really focus on patching your internet-facing vulnerabilities. And that can be hard to do when we've got more and more zero-day vulnerabilities coming out.
Yeah, I mean, even with the like the SharePoint vulnerability as an example. I mean, when that came out, there was kind of a scramble to figure out who was impacted by it, if you were actually vulnerable to it. There's the scramble for patching. Do the patches actually work? Microsoft has said at this point that Server 2016 versions of SharePoint still don't have a full patch, but they have remediation steps for it.
Right.
So, I mean, you have to be on the ball.
Yeah.
When it comes to patch management and making sure that your internet-facing systems, like the gateway to your network, is secure.
Yeah. Well, and I think having an early heads up on those is important. Or if you have an MSP that's handling IT for you, make sure they get an early heads up. We just had a great meeting with the FBI yesterday. I love being able to say that. Thanks,
I thought
FBI.
we weren't supposed to talk about that.
No, we can talk about it.
Okay.
The FBI is great. And, they're one of the resources that we have that can provide an early heads up about, threats and vulnerabilities and things like that. Because sometimes when a vulnerability is known, the information does not immediately get published to the world because you don't also want to alert every single threat actor. So there's this tug of war almost between the vendors wanting to tell customers, wanting to get the word out to defenders, but not necessarily wanting to also notify potential threat actors at the same time. So it's really important to build those contacts, get to know if you have an InfraCard chapter, maybe think about that, get to know your local agents, join information sharing groups, because that's how a lot of this early information does get circulated.
It reminds me of Log4j when we talk about these things, because that blew up because it was publicly disclosed, and then proof of concept code hit GitHub, and then every hacker and script kid on the planet immediately started attacking any server that was potentially vulnerable for it. And we saw it as a worldwide epidemic at that point.
Well, and every time a vendor announced that their product was vulnerable, it was immediately targeted.
Oh, yeah, they become the target.
I mean, I could see the tactic making sense where you first try to quietly notify all your customers and then put it out to the world. I'm not saying I don't know if that's necessarily the best strategy, because you might want to just get it out there as soon as possible. But yeah, that's definitely a strategy that a lot of vendors are taking, is trying to get the word out quietly. So make sure that you're connecting with other defenders through your information sharing groups. Implement phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication.
I mean, that's just good advice anyway. I would say. I mean, when we look at when multi-factor authentication fails, which is, when we talk about Iran, and they're, credential bombing things like VPN servers and other access points.
They're known to do that.
Yeah. And one of the ways that they get through the blocks that they have put in place is through, MFA fatigue, as an example. So if you have phishing-resistant multi-factor in place, it makes it much more difficult for a tactic like that to actually work.
So what is and isn't phishing-resistant?
Okay, so when we talk about phishing-resistant MFA, what we're talking about is something that relies basically on kind of multi-part multi-factor authentication. So as an example, what we use
prompt bombing, where they're hey,
all you have to do is hit
like,
approve or something like that.
Right.
Like,
It's too easy for people to either accidentally hit it or be like, oh my God, I'm annoyed, fine, whatever. or just type a code into the wrong website. One-time passcodes
Right.
are not phishing resistant. They are very, very phishable.
Oh no, we see those hidden man in the middle attacks all the time. It's not rare.
Yeah.
MFA bombing, though, I mean, that's an interesting one because, I mean, for a while we considered, a push notification through your phone to be phishing resistant.
I mean, it's better than text messages.
It is better than text messages.
Because they're authenticating both ends.
But at the same time, like, think about Uber as an example of that. Like, Uber was hacked.
Which one?
I think the most recent one.
Or the most recent hack? Okay.
The second most recent? I don't know, within the last couple of years.
Yeah.
One of the times they were hacked. When Lapsus went after them.
Yeah.
And they mentioned ahead of time that, like, while they had push notifications for MFA on their VPN, I mean, if you nail an employee 100 times in the middle of the night while they're trying to sleep, they will likely just roll over and hit approve to get their phone to stop buzzing at them.
That's right. The bad guys contacted the Uber employee on WhatsApp and
Yeah.
said, hey, or it was a contractor
Yeah.
on WhatsApp and said, hey, if you want this, I'm from IT, if you want this to stop, just accept it. And they do.
And they did, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, think about biometric authentication as your second form of authentication, or your favorite, Matt, passkeys.
Yeah, passkeys are excellent when it comes to securing a system. Also, if you use passkeys, you don't have to use passwords. That's my favorite part about it.
Passwords need to die.
But then, I mean, you've got other options too. Like, you've got verified push by Duo. You've got number matching through Microsoft. I mean, all of these make it. Again, they're not 100% bulletproof solutions or anything, but they make it way more difficult to gain illicit access into an account.
Yep.
Yeah.
So anyway, just as a general rule, shifting to phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication is critical, especially in times like this where there is significant international conflict. We are going to see elevated risk.
Yep.
Segment and secure your critical IT. At this point, with so many zero-day vulnerabilities, it's really hard to secure that perimeter in time. And I think we need to assume that hackers are going to get in. And what happens when they do? You want to restrict their movement and slow them down so you're able to detect them before they get to your crown jewels.
I mean, in our classes, we talk about, what do we call it, the M&M's model of security that we despise so much, where you have that hard, crunchy outside, but that nice, soft, chewy inside. I mean, you want it so that, I mean, if or when someone breaks that initial perimeter, they are not granted, full access to everything that you have access to, because in a lot of cases, that's what we end up finding.
I mean, I like M&Ms, but maybe that's because I'm a hacker.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, you want to hit backups?
Yeah, so when we talk about backup and recovery systems, as we mentioned earlier in the episode, I mean, we are seeing things like wiper malware being deployed, and it's not the first time we've seen something like that happen. We're also seeing ransomware in play here, and so maintaining a robust and immutable, that's the key word, immutable backup system for your environment is kind of key here. If someone does manage to get their way in and they manage to deploy something that negatively impacts your infrastructure, your databases, your files, or whatever else, you need a quick and effective way of rebuilding that data and getting yourself back up and going. And in the case of wiper malware, I mean, we can't even count on buying a decryptor or something like that. It's just gone.
Right.
So if you don't have robust backups, you are out of luck at that point.
Well, you just did a tabletop exercise also, and I recall one of the findings you had was about being able to scale up imaging. Do you want to talk about that as part of the recovery process?
Yeah, that was an interesting finding too. So what Sherri's talking about, we were looking at a full recovery from a ransomware attack on a medium-sized network, so about 1,500 endpoints, give or take. And the question was, if something hits the primary domain and takes out all 1,500 of those workstations, how long does it take you to redeploy 1,500 computers on a network based on the normal IT staff for that level of company? And what we identified was, if you're not using like Microsoft's automation systems for image deployment or for domain join or something like that, I mean, it can be weeks, if not months, before you get those back up and going.
That's why CrowdStrike took so many organizations down for long periods of time. Sorry, I don't mean CrowdStrike in its normal operation, but obviously the CrowdStrike glitch from last summer.
Yeah. You're still just sour about that because you got stuck at the airport. I remember.
I did. I got stuck in Boston for 2 more days, and it was lovely, actually. Thanks, CrowdStrike.
But yeah, regardless, I mean, there are automation tools you can put in place where if you have to re-image like at scale, it just makes it a much more streamlined process for you. You can literally cut like weeks off of your recovery time by implementing those ahead of time.
Yeah, and because the Iranian nation-state actors have been observed deploying wiper malware and specifically targeting backups and erasing them.
Right.
I think that's especially important right now. And look, not just to backups, but what is your recovery process?
Sure.
For those of you that have cyber insurance, a lot of you may call in a dedicated recovery firm and make sure that you have documentation to hand to them so you can actually leverage their staff.
Yeah, really
I think
useful.
That lack of documentation also sometimes hampers recovery efforts.
No, it 100% does.
Okay, last item I want to hit here for takeaways before we take questions is raise awareness against sophisticated social engineering. And obviously for years we've been talking about the importance of training and awareness, but now with generative AI, with deepfakes, I think we need to make sure everybody is aware of what people are capable of with the latest technology. So hop online, try out deepfake software. It's usually really cheap. HeyGen is one that can do deepfakes. I know there's open source.
Yeah, it's like $280 a year. There's free ones out there you can use. Like they're everywhere.
Show your team. I mean, deepfake your own team members so they see it. And not in a malicious way, obviously, but I think showing people what is possible is the best way to help ensure that they are on their guard.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, this is something that we've been including in tabletops recently. We add that deepfake component because, I mean, it makes sense for us to demonstrate to people what we can do with the software. And it doesn't take much. I mean, a few seconds worth of audio and I can clone a voice. A minute worth of video and we can clone a person, or even a still frame. We can use that to create fairly realistic looking images that may fool other people in your organization. And I mean, think about where your soft spots are. The areas that are being targeted by these social engineering campaigns are not going to be usually people like your IT and security staff. I mean, they're going to be human resources and accounting and finance and areas where there may be, less technological knowledge. Not that that's like a negative against those people or anything.
In some cases, again, we may be targets of opportunity. When you're getting hit by that shrapnel, if you're not like a defense contractor or critical infrastructure, you may just be a target of opportunity, and they might just be like sending out a phishing link or putting things out there. And if somebody happens to fall for it, then you get hacked.
Yeah.
And maybe they deploy ransomware and make money. Maybe they just steal your data. Who knows?
Yeah. Could be either one at this point.
So with that, thanks for tuning in and hearing about the cyber surge from Iran. I think there's some pretty clear ways that we can help to protect against this. But most of all, just stay on the alert. We're living in a time of increased risk.
Yep.
And yeah, for those of you that are tuning in live, make sure you like and subscribe to our podcast. For those of you that are listening to this recorded, tune in live next time. And with that, I'm Sherri.
I'm Matt.
From Cyberside Chats. And we will take some questions.
All right. So we have a couple that are in the chat at this point.
Yeah.
The first one is, I mean, we've been hearing a lot about Iranian cyber groups lately. Can you give us a sense of what's changed with their tactics recently and how these attacks are different from what we've seen in the past?
So that came in beforehand,
Yep.
and hopefully we've addressed that. But again, that ramping up of generative AI, we are seeing wiper malware. You know what we didn't talk about? Distributed denial of service
denial
attacks.
of service attacks.
So the Mirai botnet was leaked several years ago, and we are seeing variants of that. And the Iranian actors are leveraging that software that was leaked to conduct their own attacks on your infrastructure. And this gets back to the security of your perimeter, because often it's just a weak password or a vulnerability that hasn't been patched in some internet-facing systems.
Well, and I mean, with the Mirai botnet, and for those of you who are not aware, that source code was leaked back in 2016. Actually, I used it for one of my very first projects here at LMG, which was a ton of fun. But it primarily targets things like Internet of Things devices. So security cameras and DVRs and routers and things like that. Things that have either weak default passwords in place, or maybe you can't even change the password on those devices. It takes over a huge number of them, and they can launch massive denial of service attacks. The one that we just saw against an American ISP that was originating from Iran was they hit them with a 1 terabit per second denial of service attack, which is, if you guys don't follow along with terminology, that's 1,000 gigabytes per second that they're throwing at these networks. And this is where we see that kind of collateral damage taking place. If that gets targeted at a U.S. organization, I mean, it can take them completely offline, just as, again, kind of shrapnel from this attack taking place.
Yeah. We had another question. Looking at the future, what should cybersecurity leaders keep on their radar? And are there any new methods or risks that you think could become a big deal in the future? I mean, honestly, I'm concerned about attackers leveraging existing successful techniques more effectively.
Yeah.
And the number one thing that I'm concerned about is wiper malware for a couple reasons. It is so destructive. If you look at cyber insurance, claims reports, like the Net Diligence Cyber Claims Report, the number one cause of losses right now is business interruption. So if your organization gets taken down, even though we're all nervous and worried about data breaches, the actual dollars and cents, the financial losses, come from operational outages.
Yeah.
So I'm really concerned about wiper malware. I think hackers are getting really good about deleting those backups and making it difficult to recover. And I think they're getting better and better about finding ways to install it. And we've already seen in the past that it can spread from targeting Ukraine, in that case, all around the world. So I'm worried about wiper malware. And your cyber insurance coverage may have an exclusion for any nation state type attacks.
And I mean, when we look at, again, we'll just go back to Microsoft's like Patch Tuesday for July. I mean, 137 vulnerabilities, like 14 of which are critical. That's what's being used for those kind of attacks. And the fact that there's so many of them being discovered now with, again, the help of AI and just an increased focus on cybercrime, like we're going to see it more.
I think we have a question from Ruben.
We do. It says, passkey versus YubiKey versus MFA. Which do you see being adopted better by an end user? Ooh, it's a loaded question.
Well, which end user? Is this a customer? Is this an employee?
Right.
That's the first question.
Well, and it comes down to what your users are kind of willing to accept. So my favorite one, both.
That was a trick question. Good one.
So for myself personally, I like the passkey route, mainly because, one, it is a really secure means of avoiding using passwords, password managers, things like that, and it relies around a device that I have control over. So my passkeys all go through my mobile phone. They go through a facial recognition scan. I mean, that's
so
how I
you
authenticate.
can use MFA with your passkey, unlock it with biometrics, and boom, it's on your device. I prefer the YubiKey.
I know you do.
Because I like to be able to put my phone aside, and also, especially for our clients that may, we have some clients where employees have intermittent internet access and things like that, and having a hardware device can actually be very helpful. But then again, deploying a hardware device can be expensive and it can be difficult. So
it can be.
They're both strong and effective ways to enforce multi-factor authentication.
They are, and realistically, a YubiKey is a passkey. I mean, they function essentially the same. But the other thing you have to run into is, I mean, I use my device to authenticate for my enterprise applications.
Right.
Not everyone is comfortable using their personal device for work, and I mean we can't really put people down for that.
Right, and so we see a lot of our clients actually offering the ability to use passkeys on your BYOD device.
Yep.
Or if people don't want to do that, they get issued a YubiKey.
Then they get the YubiKey.
So I think those are two good options.
Or we use an option like Windows Hello is another good example of that. That is a passkey, and that just functions through the laptop that you have. It just scans you through the camera.
In the Windows environment.
But, okay, so Ruben, to answer your question, I think the one that is best adopted by the end user in whatever circumstance you're looking at is going to be the one that causes the least amount of disruption. And if you can get people on board with using passkeys, they are noticeably faster, they're easier to use, they're less frustrating. So, I mean, I would push for passkeys over multi-factor by itself at this point.
Yeah. Absolutely. Anything else? We're just about at time, actually.
Yeah, we are.
So feel free to drop us a line. You can reach us training@lmgsecurity.com or drop us a line on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate your questions and have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.